Hello friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy and I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the Niv, and we are in the book of 2 Chronicles chapter 22, and we are on to Ahaziah, the king of Judah. The people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, Jehoram's youngest son, king in his place, since the raiders who came with the Arabs into the camp had killed all the other sons. So Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old. In the some Septuagint manuscripts, so that's Greek, and Syriac, so that's Syrian. In 2 Kings 8:26, or Hebrew, 42. So that's a very vast difference between those two things. I don't know exactly how he would be 42, because his dad was 40 when he died. So I don't know how he could be 42. And if there were years in there, 20 years with no king of Judah, 22 does make more sense. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year, so not very long at all. His mother's name was Athaliah, Athaliah, and a granddaughter of Omri, Omri. That takes you all the way back to when they were settling in the lands and such. He too walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother encouraged him in doing wrong. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as his father, as the house of Ahab had done. For after his father's death, they became his advisors to his undoing. Because that's like grandpa now. Right? He also followed their counsel when he went with Joram, Joram, footnote A, or Jehoram, just like his dad's, or his granddad's name is, Jehoram. It's a variant of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, to go against Hazael, 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 king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead, because they had taken that part. The Arameans, or Armenians, wounded Joram, so he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds they had inflicted on him at Ramoth. It's got a footnote of B. Hebrew, it's Ramah, a variant of Ramoth, in his battle with Hazael, king of Aram. Then Ahaziah, footnote of C, some Hebrew manuscripts Septuagint, so that's Greek, Vulgate, Latin, and Syriac is Syrian. They have Azariah instead of Ahaziah. Ahaziah is Azariah, Azariah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to Jezreel to see Jehoram, son of Ahab, because he had been wounded. It makes sense, because it's like, well, we're related. Through Ahaziah's visit to Joram, God brought about Ahaziah's downfall. When Ahaziah arrived, he went out with Joram to meet Jehu, son of Nimshi, Nimshi, who the Lord had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. While Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's relatives who had been attending Ahaziah, and he killed them because they were sons of Ahab. They were, uncles and cousins and from that side. He then went in search of Ahaziah, and his men captured him while he was hiding in Samaria. He was brought to Jehu and put to death. They buried him, for they said, he was a son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So there was no one in the house of Ahaziah powerful enough to retain the kingdom. So, what is happening then, right? Athaliah and Joash. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to destroy the whole royal family of the house of Judah. Okay, because she was safe while her son was alive and was king. And then, remember, she's the daughter of Ahab, so she's, from Israel. She wants to retain power, and not have her life be in jeopardy. She's got to, she's got to kill all the rest of them off, or they're going to make one of those other ones in charge, and not her. So she kills her. Now, she didn't necessarily have to retain power. She didn't have to worry about that. She wanted to retain power. I mean, she could have just gone back to Israel and go back to your brother and stuff. You'd have been fine. But Jehosheba, Jehosheba, I got a footnote of D. Here we go. In Hebrew, Jehoshabath. Jehoshabeath, which is just a variant of this. The daughter of King Jehoram took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered, and put him and his nurse in a bedroom. Because Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram and wife of the priest Jehoiada. And that, so you got an overlap between the Levites and the line of the royal line of Judah. Was and wife of the priest of Jehoiada was Ahaziah's sister. She hid the child from Athaliah so she could not kill him. He remained hidden with them in the temple of God for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled the land. So saved from his grandma, which is just sad that he had to be saved from death by grandma. Grandmas are not supposed to be murdering children. No one's supposed to be murdering anybody, really. Remember, God got very upset with Cain versus Abel, and knew the one had been murdered. Could feel the blood soaking into the ground. So, never his intentions. Humans are just really messed up, right? If you want to find out what happens further here, chapter 23, it's just all of 23 is a continuation of Athaliah and Joash, the boy king, hiding from the murderous grandma. Not just in Disney stories, right? Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name is Amy, and I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the Niv, and we are in the book of 2 Chronicles, and we are in chapter 23. A continuation of Athaliah and Joash. In the 7th year of Jehoiada showed his strength. He made a covenant with the commanders of the units of 100. Azariah, son of Jehoram, Ishmael, son of Jehonan, Jehohanan, Azariah, son of Obed, Maaseiah, M-A-A-S-E-I-A-H, son of Adaiah, A-D-A-I-A-H, and Elishaphat, Elishaphat, son of Zikri. They went throughout Judah and gathered the Levites and the heads of Israelite families from all the towns. When they came to Jerusalem, the whole assembly made a covenant with the king at the temple of God. So, because there was the wicked grandma, they had to sneaky go out. So he had to sneaky go out, send messengers to all the people going, psst, don't worry. We have a boy king. He's 7 now. If you want to come, we'll anoint him and we'll get rid of this crazy lady. Jehoiada said to them, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord promised concerning the descendants of David. Now this is what you are to do. A third of you priests and Levites who are going on duty on the Sabbath or to keep watch at the doors. A third of you at the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate. Keep watch so we can get all these people in the temple without her noticing. Because too much noise, she's going to notice and be like, what is this? And all the other men are to be in the courtyards of the temple of the Lord. No one is to enter the temple of the Lord except the priests and the Levites on duty. They may enter because they are consecrated, but all the other men are to guard what the Lord has assigned to them. Get E. Or to observe the Lord's command not to enter. The Levites are to station themselves around the king, each man with his weapon in hand. Anyone who enters the temple must be put to death. Armed priests, ready to murder. Stay close to the king wherever he goes. Protect this child with your life. The child. The Levites and all the men of Judah did as Jehoiada the priest ordered. Each one took his men, those who were going on duty on the Sabbath and those who were going off duty, for Jehoiada the priest had not released any of the divisions. Then he gave the commanders of the units of 100 the spears and the large and small shields that had belonged to King David that were in the temple of God. He stationed all the men, each with his weapon in his hand, around the king, near the altar and the temple, from the south side and the north side of the temple. I think, protection against the arrows. Let alone if they get close enough, like if they get through this outer land. Like if she manages to have armed forces to get through the outer, circle, we'll have people in the inner circle and be protecting from arrows. Jehoiada and his son brought out the king's son and put a crown on him. They presented him with a copy of the covenant and proclaimed him king. They anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and cheering the king, she went to the temple of the Lord. She looked, and there was the king standing by his pillar at the entrance. The officers and trumpeters were beside the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. And the singers with musical instruments were leading the praises. Then Athaliah tore her robes and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Jehoiada, the priest, sent out the commanders of the units of 100 who were in charge of the troops, and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks." F. Or out from the precincts, and put a sword to anyone who follows her. Like, drag her out of here. Just basically right out of town. And kill anybody who follows her. For the priest had said, "Do not put her to death at the temple of the Lord." No bloodshed inside of the holiest place. So, not like that bloodshed. And So, like, animals is the only thing he's permitting. He didn't say kill humans inside his temple. That's not his deal. Human sacrifice is not his deal. So they seized her, and she reached the entrance of the horse gate on the palace grounds, and they put her to death. So they drug her right out of where they're, and well away from the temple grounds. Jehoiada then made a covenant that he and the people and the king, or covenant between the Lord and the people and the king, that they would be the Lord's people. All the people went down to the temple of Baal, B-A-A-L, and tore it down. They smashed the altars and idols and killed Matan, M-A-T-T-A-N, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Then Jehoiada placed the oversight of the temple of the Lord in the hands of the priests who were Levites, to whom David had made assignments in the temple to present the burnt offerings of the Lord as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and singing, as David had ordered. So you have to imagine that during this time of Athaliah, they were not being allowed to worship to the Lord, sacrifice to the Lord, having to sacrifice to the deities that they were commanded to, which apparently was Baal. He also stationed doorkeepers at the gates of the Lord's temple, so that no one who was in any way unclean might enter. He took with him the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought the king down from the temple of the Lord. They went into the palace through the upper gate and seated the king on the royal throne, and all the people of the land rejoiced. And the city was quiet, because Athaliah had been slain with the sword. So nobody was willing to die to try to save her from, being killed. I guess they weren't a fan. They didn't want her for a ruler anyway, if they were all so easily persuaded. Right? They must have been unhappy. So, if you want to find out what Joash, the boy king, does next, you're going to have to come back. He's a pretty good king. You're going to have to come back for the next set of videos, friends. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy, and I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the Niv, and we are in the book of 2 Chronicles. We are in chapter 24, continuing the story of Joash, the boy king. Joash repairs the temple. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah, Z-I-B-I-A-H. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest, also known as uncle and surrogate dad. Jehoiada chose 2 wives for him, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash decided to restore the temple of the Lord. He called together the priests and the Levites and said to them, "Go to the towns of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the temple of your God. Do it now." But the Levites didn't act as once. Therefore, the king summoned Jehoiada, the chief priest, and said to him, "Why haven't you required the Levites to bring in from Judah and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of the testimony?" Now, you should know that in the longer story, he said to do this at 7, and at 23, nothing had happened in the repairs. So he took it into a different oversight sort of way. Now the sons of that wicked woman, Athaliah, had broken into the temple of God and had used it, even its sacred objects, for the Baals. Or the Baals. Oh no. Now they're not pure. They're ritually impure. At the king's command, a chest was made and placed outside at the gate of the temple of the Lord. A proclamation was issued in Judah and Jerusalem that they should bring to the Lord the tax that Moses, the servant of God, had required of Israel in the desert. All the officials and all the people brought their contributions gladly, dropping them into the chest until it was full. Whenever the chest was brought in by the Levites to the king's officials, and they saw that there was a large amount of money, the royal secretary and the officer of the chief priest would come and empty the chest and carry it back to its place. They did this regularly and collected a great amount of money. The king and Jehoiada gave it to the men who carried out the work required for the temple of the Lord. They hired masons and carpenters to restore the Lord's temple, and also workers in iron and bronze to repair the temple. The men in charge of the work were diligent, and the repairers progressed under them. They rebuilt the temple of God according to its original design and reinforced it. When they had finished, they brought the rest of the money to the king and Jehoiada, and with it were made articles for the Lord's temple, articles for the service and for the burnt offerings, and also dishes and other objects of gold and silver. As long as Jehoiada lived, burnt offerings were presented continually, so night and day, in the temple of the Lord, which would make sense if you're thinking about their sacrificing these animals, believing that they're removing sin from the population at large of over 1 million people. So, because they were 1 million people when they were wandering through the desert. So that's pretty much ebbed and flowed up and down based upon plagues and wars, if you will, over time. But usually in Judah itself, roughly 300,000 people is show. So, that's a lot of sin, for sure. Now, Jehoiada was old and full of years, and he died at the age of 130. He was buried in the kings, with the kings of the city of David, because of the good he had done in Israel for the God and for his temple. So he was given a king's burial. The wickedness of Joash. After the death of Jehoiada, the officials of Judah came and paid homage to the king, and he listened to them. They abandoned the temple of the Lord, the God of their fathers, and worshipped Asherah poles and idols. Because of their guilt, God's anger came upon Judah and Jerusalem. Although the Lord sent prophets to the people to bring them back, and though they testified against them, they would not listen. Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, son of Jehoiada the priest. He stood before the people and said, "This is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands? You will not prosper. Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you." But they plotted against him, and by order of the king, they stoned him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. King Joash did not remember the kindness Zechariah's father Jehoiada had shown to him, but killed his son, who said as he lay dying, "May the Lord see this and call you to account." Because remember, in the way the system, this way all this works. If they pray, this is the belief system. It's part of the Judeo-Christian belief system. If you pray to God for something, you pray because you're in distress. You pray. God hears, and if he hears enough prayers about exactly the same thing, he's going to send down some kind of earth angel in disguise, somebody they won't know, to really see how they are and, take that into account and bring justice. Justice doesn't mean that God is just going to do whatever we told him to do. He's going to do what's fair for you and them, not one or the other. Now, if one is clearly in the right, the other one clearly in the wrong, then you have nothing to worry about. I always say whatever the Lord says is right, so his will is what is just. And I just ask him to bring justice to the situation. Because what's balanced and fair is what's justice. At the turn of the year, we have the footnote of A, probably in the spring, due to the Jewish calendar, the army of Aram marched against Joash. It invaded Judah and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the people. They sent all the plunder to their king in Damascus, so it wasn't very far away at the time. Normally, Aram is further away than Damascus, but this is after they had conquered that particular part of the area. There was several Armenian kings that, if you were to go watch documentaries, marched around during these various BC eras, conquering. Although the Armenian army had come with only a few men, the Lord delivered them into the hands of a much larger army because Judah had forsaken the Lord, the God of their fathers. Judgment was executed on Joash. When the Armenians withdrew, they left Joash severely wounded. His officials conspired against him for murdering the son of Jehoiada the priest, and they killed him in his bed. So he died and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. So he was not popular there. Those who conspired against him were Zabad, Z-A-B-A-D, with a footnote of B, a variant of Jehozabad, J-O-Z-A-B-A-D, the son of Shimeath, an Ammonite woman. Jehozabad, the son of Shimerith, which is a variant of Shomer, according to this footnote, a Moabite woman. The account of his sons, the many prophecies about him, and the record of restoration of the temple of God are written in the annotations on the book. In the annotations on the book of Kings. So in annotations, but not like, say, a whole page, is how I read that, in the book of Kings. And Amaziah, his son, succeeded him as king. So, if you want to know about Amaziah's reign according to the Levitical view during the Babylonian diaspora, you're going to need to come back to watch the next video, friends. Hello, friends. So, Bible study. So Romans, it's the Niv, Romans. We're going to do 18 to 32. Now, I'm going to remind you this is a letter written by the Apostle Paul. So these opinions are that of the Apostle Paul. I did not write them. His opinions stem from a society that was like, roughly 2,000 years ago. Or roughly. Because, it was about 50 CE, right? Or that's what the biblical scholars say. It's about 50 CE. I'm not a biblical scholar, so I'm not arguing with them. So it's not quite 2,000 years ago. So, some of it's a little outdated for here. So just remember that as I go through this. Okay. Chapter 18. The wrath of God. God's wrath against mankind is this. Is the name of this parable. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all of the godlessness and the wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness. I.e., you can't cover anything up. Yep, the truth always outs, yeah. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for the images made to look like mortal men, and birds and animals and reptiles. Okay, so what he's saying here is people exchange the prayer for the living God for statues. And he's not being specific of what people, because it was going on in the history, the golden calves in Egypt and all that, right? And in his experience when dealing with the silversmiths and the worshippers of Artemis, right? They had this premise that God, they could construct something man-made and God would live in it. And if you're like, that sounds crazy, who believes, okay, I'm going to give you, I'm not sure how hot it is. Hold on. You're like, what are you doing? Hang on a second. Okay. This is a censer, right? It is made of bronze. This belonged to my grandfather. This is an incense burner. You can see all the resin on the top. I use this every morning when I go to the Eucharist. Inside there is a charcoal disc. Okay, in a church, they use a thing called a crucible. That's the thing where you're seeing them and it's swinging. This has got air holes down at the bottom here, and it sits on feet and stands, so it's stable. I use this every morning when I give myself the Eucharist. I burn the incense in it that is the pleasing aromas to the Lord. Hang on one second while I put this back. It's still hot. So, the pleasing aromas to the Lord. Their belief system is, for me, I like that it's an incense burner. It's bronze. Do I interact with it when I'm doing the Eucharist? Certainly. The pleasing aromas to the Lord is part of the belief system that this is how it is that you communicate with Creator. What's actually happening is that the incense that is frankincense and myrrh opens up our pineal gland. It has a neurological effect on us, and it makes us believe we're having a religious experience. It opens our brain up, so we're communicating, because the communication is happening here, not really in the piece of metal. But they have a belief system that's been in existence all the way into the Old Testament, that if you talk to the piece of metal, they'll talk back. That they're in there. Right? Like the same thing with the Ark of the Covenant. God lives in the box. No. He comes to the box. It's not the same thing. Right? You light that. So he communicates. So he's saying they started worshiping the objects instead of the idea. Okay. Verse 24. Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity, for degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. They're talking about temple prostitutes. So I need to be pretty specific here. temple prostitutes, both male and female temple prostitutes. What he's talking about is in a time frame in history in which the Israeli people, after already knowing the Ark of the Covenant, after already having God come into their world, chose to throw that away and started having ritualistic sex in the temple. So he's trying to show that, the people who are these Pharisees, these Sadducees who want to be like, no, we know everything. But no, they're full of corruption. And he's calling out their own history of corruption, as the prophets actually do repeatedly. Men committed indecent acts with other men received in themselves the due penalty for their perversion. Furthermore, since they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to a deprived mind to do what ought not be done. They became filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. Absolute power tends to corrupt. Absolutely. Right? They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. I mean, they're roaming around trying to kill him, trying to find reasons to kill him. So he's got a very particular opinion of them. And, they are gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They are senseless, faithless, heartless, ruthless. And these Pharisees sound a little bit like they've become predators to him. That's what he feels. And I can understand why. Because they are trying to find a way to murder him. Send him to us so we can have him murdered on the way. I mean, that's their plan. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do this very thing, but also approve of those who practice them. So, he has got, now I tend to be a little bit more peace and love and kumbaya. Now, I like the Apostle Paul when in his level of faith, and then we start deviating when he starts getting into the dark stuff. Because, you manifest your world. So if you're going to focus on negativity, you're going to bring negativity. If you're going to focus on positivity, you're going to bring positivity. I have this way of isolating. When I'm around too many people who are bringing negativity to me, I will not have that. I need to be at a state of peace, because peace is what I'm trying to cultivate and ground into the world. So, he's obviously feeling some kind of way. That's what I would call this. But it's also not inaccurate. In the course of the Pharisees, you have to go through the Old Testament and read it. If you were to go through the Old Testament and read it, you'd see how often, if it's meant to be a one-on-one relationship between us and Creator, and we're not supposed to let anyone else in and affect our relationship with Him, right? No matter what anybody else says, we're not supposed to pop off the side of our mouth and lose our temper or control people or be nasty. No excuses for treating people crappy. That's what he's saying. We've been able to see it in nature that God is a living God. We are at His whim, and we know it's His will. And we're just stubborn and don't want to give over. And humanity as a whole. Most of us do go about our day trying to impose our own will. We have no idea that we're not even supposed to do that. And that is because, indeed, we were led astray. The people who were supposed to most worship, whether it's because of kings and what they've ordered, or it's the priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, take your pick. I don't particularly care. If you're going to blindly follow the leader, if the leader goes astray, you go astray. And that's what people were doing in the culture that Paul came from, leading up to this point when he's in his fields writing this passage, because he's definitely in his fields, and they are legitimately trying to kill him, right? To have him murdered. That's why he's in Rome. So he's pointing out their corruption, which is actually right and proper. When there is a problem within an institution, we are supposed to say something. Red flags aren't there just to look pretty. They're there so we do something about them. He brought them to our attention so that we can correct it. Because we are, as worship to our Messiah, if you are a Christian like me, are supposed to be leaving the world better than we found it. That's our job. So we're supposed to be looking for the things that we can improve and ways that we can help. So let's be out in the world trying to be better people today. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name is Amy, and I am indeed an ordained minister. We are in Bible study. We are in the Psalms, book 1 of the Psalms, and today we are doing Psalm 20, verses 1 through 9. So let's jump in. For the director of music, a Psalm of David. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. Selah. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. We will shout for joy when you are victorious. And we will lift up our banners in the name of our God. May the Lord grant you all your requests. Now, I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He answers him from his holy heaven with the saving power of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of our Lord God. They are brought to their knees and fall, but we rise up and stand firm. O Lord, save the King. Answer us when we call.